Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Media. Today we are going to look at the shutter speed with the fast moving objects using Nikon D750 with the kit lens 24 to 120 millimeters. Here's a room where we're going to test that using the fan, and I will be standing here taking pictures of the moving fan and also look at the effect of zoom and learn some important points. So as you can see, the fan is lit from these two lights. I will not be using any flash, so let us begin. Here is the first picture taken from that position right next to the lights using Nikon D750 at 1/60th of a second exposure with f4.0 and focal length of 24 millimeters with an ISO of 2800. We can clearly see the grains on the fan blades. So let us look at the next picture. The next picture was taken while the fan was set at slow speed and a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second. As you can see, the blades are already blurred. So obviously 1/60th of a second is not going to work very well with even slow moving objects like people dancing on the stage or people just moving around on a stage can create blurry images. This is an important lesson right here with just a slow moving fan. Which here the shutter speed was set to 1/25th of a second with the same settings, and still the blades appear blurred. So this is while the fan is moving at a slow speed. All right, now let's move on to the next step. Here the shutter speed was increased to 1/250th of a second with the rest of the things being same, and now the auto ISO is jacked up to 12,800 on Nikon D750. Still, we see the blades are sort of slightly blurred compared to the original picture. And here's the original picture. As you can see, we can see the beautiful grains on the blades. And going back to this one, which was 2/50th of a second. This is while the fan is moving on a slow speed. At 2/50th of a second, when the fan is moving medium speed, now we can see it is much more blurred compared to when the fan was on a slow motion. All right, the next picture we're going to see here, and this is at 1/320th of a second. While this fan is moving at medium speed, we still have blurred blades. Let's see what happens in the next picture here. And here is a picture where the speed is increased to 1/400th of a second, and this is with medium fan speed, and this is where we are coming into objects like race cars or motorcycles or aeroplanes which are moving at considerably fast speed. So even 1/400th of a second, we are seeing blurring of the fan blades. At the same time, the image is also getting dull. So when we see fast moving objects, especially like in a concert hall or a place where the lighting is limited, then we have to keep in mind not only the shutter speed but also having the appropriate ISO to make sure that the subjects are properly lit and also in focus. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Now the fan is going at fast speed. Even an exposure of 1/400th of a second still cannot capture the blades in freeze motion. Let's go on to 1/500th of a second, still the blades are blurred. At the same time, the image is dull and the ISO is 12,800. In these situations, when the objects are moving pretty fast, if it's a sports event where the daylight is bright, then we may be able to get away with low ISO. But if we are doing this in a concert situation, it may make a big difference. And now this is 1/800th of a second at 44 millimeters, and the ISO is 12,800. Even at 1/800th of a second, the fast moving fan blades are blurred to some degree. Some grains we can see here, but for the most part, and the second important aspect I talked about was the pictures getting dull, and the third point is an increase in ISO. So in order to improve the image quality, either we can use an f-stop, which is less than 4 if you have a fixed prime lens. The other thing is to increase the shutter speed much higher. So let's look at the next picture here. And here's the next picture, which is here is the next picture, which is at a shutter speed of 1,000th of a second. The blades seem to be sort of frozen, but this fan is moving on a high speed at this time, and of course the whole picture looks pretty dull, and the ISO is at the max 12,800 in Nikon D750. And if we go up much higher, 1/200th of a second, as we are cutting the exposure almost by 50%, the blades seem to be not blurred, but the whole image is pretty dark. And that is obviously because of the length of exposure, that is 1/2000th of a second. And of course, the ISO is 12,800. And here's the next picture where we are looking at another image, which is 1/2000th of a second at 46 millimeters. And if you come back here, this is the picture which we started off with, where the fan blades are clearly seen. Of course, the lights are on here. The fan blades are clearly seen. Now we can learn several lessons from this simple experimentation. If we are taking pictures of moving objects, like even fast dance on a dance stage during a drama or a concert, then at least your shutter speed needs to be more than 250 to 500 in order to freeze the subject. If we are dealing with very fast moving objects like motorcycles, automobiles, hopefully they are in daylight time, where we can use anywhere from 1,000th of a second to 1/4000th of a second to freeze the vehicles in motion. That would apply, the same thing would apply to birds and aeroplanes. Here is an example of an LED screen in a concert hall where this image is rotating, and with a shutter speed of 1/200th of a second, we are able to freeze these images. Here is another example where the artists on the stage are still, but there are moving objects on the LED screen, and at a speed of 1/200th of a second, we are able to not only freeze these images and also get fairly decent picture of the entire stage with an ISO of 10,000. Here's another example of a globe moving on an LED screen, and we have been able to freeze that with an exposure of 1/400th of a second. So these are good examples of how we can vary the shutter speed in concert halls and still get a fairly well lit images of the artists and what's happening on the LED screens. Let's look at some more examples. And this is another interesting example where all these images are moving on an LED screen, and obviously with 1/500th of a second we are able to freeze these images. And here are some other examples of the same thing. As you can see, they look different in each one of these pictures. And here are the LED screens, 3 different panels actually. Let's look at some of the examples. And here again, all these lights are constantly changing every second, and at a shutter speed of 1/400th of a second, we are able to freeze these images. Here's another example. And I was at the end of the concert hall, which was I would say more than 500 feet, and still we were able to use Nikon D750 using actually a crop lens 18-140, and still we were able to get these beautiful pictures. As you can see, this is the clock has changed, and here are some other examples where we can freeze these moving objects on LED screens by using the appropriate shutter speed and also using appropriate ISO, so that we can get very good images of the artists on the stage. And here is a picture of the lady here, and these are the 3 LED screens I was talking about. Here are some examples where all these things are moving, and with the fast shutter speed we are able to freeze these images. And of course this moon was rotating during the concert, and here's another example. So several things that come to light are: 1, using the appropriate shutter speed; number 2, using the appropriate f-stops. Here the f-stops are like 6, 7, 8, 9 because the lens was wide open, and at 52 millimeters. So there are lots of things that we can see. These are all different images on the same LED screens. Okay, hopefully this will give you some idea as to how to approach fast moving objects on a well-lit drama stage as compared to a concert hall where the lighting may vary and the objects be moving in many different directions. And of course, the outdoor sports like motorcycle race or car race, or even taking pictures of birds and aeroplanes. Thank you so much for your time. We will see you with another episode of Nikon D750 and some tips. Thank you.